Alright, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Breakdown Daily Recap. I'm Breaky CPK, of course. Today is January 29th, 2018, and we got a couple things to go over. No more tournament recaps. Obviously, ESL 1 Genting wrapping up. Went over the grand finals yesterday, an epic grand finals that it was. But we do still have a little bit of final thoughts on the ESL 1 Genting event, which we'll get into in just a second right here. There is also some more information coming out about the Bucharest Major. That's going to be happening in early March time frame. We're going to talk about the format that they have announced at that event, and then some other roster announces. Some new rosters, in fact, that we could talk about here on the Daily Recap. So, without further ado, first things first, once again, ESL 1 Genting. So yes, the event is over. Again, a great grand finals. Newbie winning it in the end, 3-2. If you missed it, I highly recommend checking out my yesterday's daily recap. It was such a good series. And frankly, if you have time to watch the whole series in full, if you can make time for it, I would highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Dota 2, it was some great Dota. Now, the event wrapped up. I didn't necessarily get the chance to give my final thoughts on the event as a whole, so I kind of want to do that first, and then talk about something else that happened here today. So first things first, I thought the event overall was a good event. I went into it hyping it up as potentially one of the better events that we were going to have. Ultimately, I think we got that. If you were to rank, if you were to do a tier list of the events so far that we've had for the Dota 2 Pro Circuit in this season, I would say it is up there, if not the best one that we have had so far. I can't, off the top of my head, think of, other epic ones necessarily, but, I would definitely say it is up there at the very least. So, with that in consideration, obviously there was the drama, the whole Facebook drama that happened in the very beginning, and yes, that did make the viewing experience really unfortunate, at least off the bat, when it came to watching this event, and it seemed like that was more the focus rather than the games themselves, which really definitely took away bits and pieces. But personally, I made a point to watch still as much as I could, and throughout the event, I actually made a point to watch it on Facebook. And I know some people will hear that and be like, oh, how dare you, you traitor, why would you do that? Guys, I was trying to support the idea of esports scene and the idea that growth could happen on another streaming platform. Whether or not you agree or disagree with how they've handled the situation with the whole DMCAs and everything, personally, I wanted to try my best to at least give it a chance when I was able to finally watch it and see what the technology was able to provide, and if it potentially, and how personally I was able to enjoy that experience if I was at all. And long story short, I thought it was okay. There were some obvious flaws with the Facebook streaming. One of the bigger ones being the interaction with it, especially when it comes to Twitch chat, not having that side of it. Obviously, that was pretty much non-existent. No one's really using the Facebook chat because you don't have that anonymity, and although there are negatives that come with that share, I do think it definitely hurts the feel of watching it at the same time. I noticed that, when I was watching on Facebook, I found myself missing, being able to interact even every now and then, or just seeing what Twitch chat is saying, whether it's silly or not. So that was definitely one of the more unfortunate things. The getting to the stream in the first place, too, again, watching it, if you just go to facebook.com, trying to find it, even though I eventually got a way to be able to find it where you have to type in ESL Dota 2, go to their page, and find it on that page, it's not intuitive whatsoever. That's something they still need to definitely work on when it comes down to it. However, again, when I was able to watch the matches, when it comes to the production itself and the event, I did think they did a fantastic job. The talent, once again, was great, and the actual production that they had at the event, from even the skits that they put on, I went back and watched some of the main event. I didn't get the chance to stay up necessarily on the main event nights. It was 2:30 a.m. at my time was when they were basically starting. So sometimes I caught like the tail end of it in the morning after I would wake up, but I did go back and watch a little bit of it to, again, grasp an idea of what the main event especially looked like. And again, they pulled it off well. So from that perspective, I did think the event ultimately was a success. But again, no doubt the drama did oversee it somewhat in the community's eyes. And, with that in mind, there was a response that Johannes here, one of the PR guys actually, or marketing, whatever you want, social media, whatever you want to look at it from ESL side, he did make a Reddit post earlier today, in fact 2 hours ago, on the Dota 2 Reddit, essentially saying we were wrong is the title of the article, title of the post even. So the TLDR of it essentially is they understand that they fucked up, basically. They should not have handled it how they did. When it came to filing the DMCAs, they understand that they were doing it more so in the moment, not thinking about the big picture. If they were to go back and it was to happen again, they say they learned from their experience. They would let the streamers on Twitch do their thing. They would worry about themselves and worry about bettering their product than worrying about trying to make sure others can't put on quality products themselves. So this apology, it was a good apology, I feel like, from ESL side, and I think it absolutely was necessary. They were definitely going to need to say something on the situation. The biggest thing missing from this, though, and as people are pointing out in the comments, is that the vice president, also known as a flying DJ on Reddit at least, and online in most cases, Ulrich, I believe is his first name, he was not in this. People are basically demanding apologies from him specifically, and that's something I personally think I agree with that, if that makes sense. Yes, the bigger companies out there, they do have PR and everything. They have their PR that makes sure that, figuring out the best ways to handle situations like this. And a lot of the time it does involve, if it's a specific person especially, in this case it was in a lot of ways, not necessarily all of ESL, but the flying DJ specifically, that the one that was somewhat vocal on social media, basically calling out the community, saying that they need to stop whining, and, he made a point that they were filing the DMCAs, etc., tried to do the AMA, and that kind of failed, really. They probably will be better off if he ultimately, and I think it should even be some kind of, him actually, even if it's him reading something, at least visually seeing something from him, making a point that he realizes he fucked up, he probably did not handle it the best when it came to the PR side of things for ESL. And I think unless that happens, there's still gonna be some pretty bad hate towards ESL from the community. Me personally, again, from the very beginning, as I made the point, I understand where this is all coming from. I understand the idea of trying Facebook. I still think that it could potentially work out in the future. It's just a matter they really need to make sure to learn from these mistakes. The biggest thing being the interface, being able to watch the streams, where to go to watch the streams, making it very clear how to do so. And Facebook themselves need to set it up much more user-friendly, frankly, if they do want it to be ultimately more successful. But again, the point is, I do think it's definitely possible. We're talking about a very, very rich, successful company, in the case of Facebook especially, that I'm sure that they too may realize, things that went on right here, and hopefully, again, learn from these experiences. But it goes back to, from ESL's PR sake, I do think unless we get a verbal apology from Ulrich, aka the Flying DJ, the community is still going to be in an uproar. And frankly, if that even happens, there's still going to be some pissed off people, and that you're never going to really be able to change them ultimately. But that, to me, seems like the best route, the best action that they could take right now, if they truly want to get on the good side, at least the best that they can when it comes to the community. I will say the finals being the way that they were, that does help a little bit in ESL's sake, because they were so epic and they were so great. But still, from a PR side of things, maybe that's something that they should still think about in the end. All right, so that's the last we're going to talk about ESL and Genting. At least I think that is at this time. Moving forward, one of the upcoming events that will be happening down the line in early March is the PGL Bucharest Major, $1 million tournament, of course, one of the majors during this season. PGL, a very successful organizer, great at putting on these events. A lot of excitement around this. And today they officially announced the schedule, really, the full schedule breakdown, as well as the format of the event. So now we already know the teams that are going and everything. We'll get to that in just a second. But they announced the format, and something I've been mentioning ever since Kiev Major last year. Where the hell's our Swiss format? Why have we not gone back to that yet? Because it was successful in Kiev. I thought it was, at least. I thought it was a successful format in Kiev, and sure enough, here it is, Swiss format coming back, PGL Bucharest, running with the Swiss format. I was excited to see this. They are going to be best of one matches throughout the group stages, which, best of one, still, from a scheduling standpoint, I get it, and yes, especially Swiss, I understand. I'm still never the biggest fan of best of ones, because I think MOBAs especially, you really need best of threes to truly determine the more deserving team, but if for the sake of making sure the schedule works, best of one, fine. They're running a Swiss format, though. It is a 16-team tournament, so it works out very nicely. The top 8 will eventually move on. For those that are maybe a little bit unfamiliar with the Swiss format, they break it down pretty good right here. Essentially how it works, initially, everyone's going to be matched up, obviously with 0-0 record with one another. The first round will be seeded based, so I'm guessing the invited teams are going to be seeded 1 through 8, and then or 1 through 10 even, I think it is. And then the qualified teams will be seeded 11 through 16, if I'm not mistaken. So how those seeds are determined, I assume it's going to be for the Dota 2 Pro Circuit points, if not up to their own opinions. I'm sure they'll do a great job of that. Once they announce that, we'll talk more about that. But, so the matchups happen, 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, etc., and then those matches happen. When those matches play out, then in the second round, the teams that won their first match, they then get randomly placed up against another team that happened to win their first match. And then the losing teams get matched up against another losing team that happened to play their first round match. And that essentially continues. The evenly matched records keep going up against one another until, in this case, after the third round. So after teams... the two teams that are 2-0 after the third round, they actually get to the playoffs, automatically going to go to the playoffs, and other teams still need to be figured out from there, and they keep playing it out basically with matching up records until they ultimately have 8 teams. So I think the limit is 3-0 will get you in, 0-3 does knock you out. So at the very least, teams are going to be playing 3 games throughout these group stages, which again maybe isn't a lot necessarily, but Swiss format, I do think it does help justify, it does help make sure to get the most deserving team possible. It makes sure you get as many good chances as possible to allow yourself to advance on to the next round. It's by no means a perfect format. I don't think that necessarily exists, to be honest. And maybe in a all the scheduling time in the world, sure, you could possibly do that, but without all the limits that we have to deal with the scheduling and conflicts and everything, I do like the idea of a Swiss format, and I'm excited for it when it comes to PGL Bucharest and them deciding to run it here. Also, they do have a website. It's called the bucharestmajor.com. I highly recommend checking it out. I really wish most, if not all, events would put a site like this together. It has great information. It gives you a breakdown of all the teams that we're looking at, of course, how they qualified. It gives you the full schedule of the event as well, which again they announced today, the format breakdown. Fantastic site. So big shout out to PGL definitely for putting this together. Roster changes, a couple that I thought were kind of interesting. This one, Entity Gaming, apparently they're a gaming organization in India, actually. If you heard one of my previous daily recaps here, I announced that ESL actually made a point that they're going to be doing a circuit in India, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've done it before, but the India's esports scene apparently is growing a little bit these last couple of years. And I guess Entity Gaming, again, from India, they're actually picking up a couple of new players. They had a team before, somewhat Southeast Asian based, but they dropped some of those previous players. They picked up new ones, including some European players that you probably recognize. Hesta Joe Rotten and Noya specifically, as well as Arise. We're talking about players that have some experience, on the competitive scene. Arise, he comes from different squads, including KP, a popular team there. Hesta Joe Rotten, he of course comes from Danish Bears in the former Cloud9 and Imperial squad. Same thing with Noya here as well, Danish Bears and Cloud9 squad. So they join what is Jobizi and Luke. Jobizi's from the Philippines, and Luke is from Singapore, it looks like. So I don't really know much about them. No Wikipedia links even. I don't believe so, yeah. But the point is, team to look out for. So curious on this, Entity Gaming, and how they perform. I assume they're going to be a Southeast Asian team, would be my best guess, but we're going to have to wait and see more information on this team. They have 3 European players, so maybe they are going to make a point to play in Europe. I don't know. But the organization itself is based in India, so who knows? We'll have to get more information on that. And then the final piece of information, I thought this was interesting. Dota 2 post made about it. The DAC qualifiers, open qualifiers, are going to be starting here very shortly. And a team from Europe has signed up with the players Keizu, maybe next time, Madara, Koikva, and Cinderin. That's a pretty good roster right there. Of course, you got a couple of former Ad Phenom players, aka Mouse Sports. You have Keizu, who's been a hot topic free agent, in my opinion. It's the offlane role. Koikva, a fantastic carry player, as well as a mid player, a fantastic core player. And then Cinderin, we all know about Cinderin, the leadership that he brings to the table. A team that definitely has potential. Whether or not this is a team just simply for these qualifiers and nothing more, or if this is a team in the making that we need to start looking out for. I do think Europe specifically is one of the more open regions right now in the competitive scene. You have Liquid, you have Secret, you have OG. After that, it does taper off a little bit. I mean, you still have Kingwin, yes, especially in Penta Sports, but it really does start to go down a little bit as far as the tier of teams, in my opinion. And I do think there are some good openings there for a team like this to come in and try to claim that area, that spot. In the EU region, a top 5 team even. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for the daily recap. So once again, as always, want to thank you for tuning in. Personally, I will be leaving tomorrow, as I mentioned as well before. I'm leaving tomorrow actually to fly out to Kiev, Ukraine, so excited for that. I'm going to be going to the Starladder studio, where I'll be casting the WESG North America main event, as funny as that sounds. I'm going to Ukraine to cast a North American event. Anyways, I'm going to their studio, going to cast a North American event. I'm going out there with Grand, as well as Lacoste and Gareth, as well from Join Dota over there. We're going to be all flying out, and we're going to be doing coverage on the North American region for WESG. That kicks off on the 1st, I want to say, so 3 days from now, 2-3 days from now. It is also happening during the Starladder Invitational, so there will be that to keep in mind as well. We will have to preview those events in these coming daily recaps. But the point is, I'll do my best. I can't make promises. There might be a day or so where I do not get to do a daily recap, especially with the traveling. But I am going to do my best to make sure to get the daily recaps in every single day. Hence the name after all. So tomorrow's, I actually leave later afternoon, so I should be able to do it tomorrow before I leave. Right there. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you guys next time for the daily recap. Okay.